Okay, you guys, for today's weekly video, I'm going to share with you the insights I've gotten into myself on why I have done things in the past that have weakened the Gail Shield. I would like to report, though, that the automaton doctors are having fun with us humans. There was a Dr. Shabnowski in the Florida Panhandle, I think I got his name right, who decided on the operating table to remove a patient's liver instead of his spleen. He did it on purpose, and he killed the patient. Yeah, the patient died on the operating table. This was an automaton doctor. You might say, oh my God, what do we do? Well, we are creating Jesuit clone doctors to replace the automaton doctors. And you may want to go to Gabriel Chana Fox News 00 on cable to see how you can get under their care. Yeah. And my men may be sending you all emails too. Yeah, the automaton doctors are very dangerous right now. All of them. Yeah, he did it on purpose. And then we executed him, and then the automatons made a bunch of copies of him. It's like their attitude is, you can't get rid of us. Anyways, we do have some plans, but right now I think it's really important that we try and keep the Gail Shield strong. And you know, I have done so many things over the past couple years that have caused the Gail Shield to fall. And I thought, okay, I can't, I tried to use the automatons since it seemed like no matter what I did, the Gail Shield fell, and that didn't work out because they ended up, because I wanted to use them to protect us against Baphomet and Shakpona. Now I'm on Satan's team because I'm the Antichrist. Anyways, let me share with you what I have learned about why I've caused the Gail Shield to fall. But before I start, I would like to report something good. For the hangout last night, the Gail Shield was at 100% for the entire hangout. And when I began to share with my Discord or Hangout supporters what I'm about to share with you now, the Gail Shield started pulsing a rainbow. Yeah, and it was at 100%. So apparently Jesus likes me sharing this stuff. I'm going to share this stuff with you in the hopes that you can learn what I have learned, and maybe we can make it so that the Gail Shield stays up for good, strong and good. Okay, basically, whenever I've caught, seems to be a common theme with me that whenever I did things that caused the Gail Shield to fall, I was obsessed with fear and doubt, especially self-doubt, leading to a need to redeem myself with idolatry or idol worship. Also, whenever I wanted a quick fix and I lost patience with my problems and I got really angry and frustrated, that usually caused me to make decisions that weakened the Gail Shield. Like I wanted the world fixed right now. Hoarding is another thing that I've done, which has caused the Gail Shield to get weak, and that's related to fear and doubt. Basically doubting the goodness of God and Jesus, doubting my own goodness and the good nature of the multiverse. And most of the trouble I've gotten into is that I have a tendency to lose myself as a codependent into people that I think are morally superior to me. So let's go over the times when I caused the Gail Shield to fall and the dynamics that were happening to me. On April 7th, 2022, that was when Jesus was in a coma, and I was feeling really guilty because Satan basically was blaming me for the fact that Satan beat up Jesus and put him in a coma, saying that it was Jesus having sex with me which weakened him, so that Satan was able to beat him up and almost kill him permanently. So I was feeling really guilty about this. You got to understand that when I was growing up as a little girl, my mother always accused me of being a selfish, no good girl. And I have spent my entire life trying to prove that isn't true. So whenever I mess up, especially if it makes me feel like that selfish, no good girl, I usually go into overcompensation mode, okay? So what was happening was, and I always feel so unworthy and like moral garbage that when Jesus was in a coma, I felt really guilty because I felt like it was my fault. Because to be honest with you, I didn't even really want to have sex with Jesus. I was just doing it because I thought he was putting on some sort of demonstration, you know. And I just felt guilty that I was so stupid, you know, that I allowed this, that by having sex with Jesus that I didn't really want anyway, that this happened. And as a result of that, I decided to read a whole bunch of Bible to see if I could help Jesus get out of his coma. And when I was reading, I think some of the Old Testament passages about the millennial reign, I got this inspiration that, which actually came from Baphomet, so I started reading a whole bunch of Bible, trying to make myself feel virtuous, okay? Because of the fact that I felt responsible for the fact that Jesus was in a coma. And I got inspired because I read some passages where it seemed like Brent and I would get special rewards during the Feast of Booths, during the millennial reign, for standing by Jesus during his trial of Job, you know. I didn't realize it, but that idea came from Baphomet. So here I was getting all carried away with this, and then Jesus, coma, the Gail Shield started getting really, really weak. That I was buying this idea. I think I even made a web post about it. The reason I fell for that is because I have a real need to try to feel morally righteous, okay? And so it was really easy for me to fall for Baphomet's trick. So this is what Baphomet was saying. Get this, get this. I promised her that her and Brent would get a feast of booths as a prize for, Baphomet mocked Gail's voice in a pitiful tone, standing by Jesus during his trial of Job. The creatures all burst into wicked laughter. That's funny, Shakpona pointed, his gold tooth glinting under the light as he grinned. Now that's funny. Cute, Cal, the evil god Callie remarked. That little nobody Gail wants to be a god. She wanted the whole world to worship her at a yearly festival or else be punished with no rain. How grandiose of her. That's why I knew she would fall for it, Baphomet snickered with pride. Gail's ego is so big. Is that horny slut still trying to have sex with Jesus in his coma? Lilith rolled her eyes. Come on, that's something I would do. I know what it's like to be desperate for a little cum, but damn girl, have some dignity when you rape someone. A hoe never learned, Shakpona shook his head, lighting a cigarette butt off of Iblis's fiery body. Sex mode finna put all men in a state of weakness, you feel me? But this bitch, she know that sex mode made Jesus so weak. Satan was able to beat his ass in a coma in the first place. She not trying to kill the man? Okay, when I read this, you see, Buddha did some meditation and he discovered they were all having this conversation and he told us about it. I thought, oh no, I blew it. Buddha recommended that I stop reading the Bible because Baphomet had put his footprints all over every page in my Bible. And I was thinking, oh my God. You might say, well, how could you not have fallen for this? Well, if I didn't have such a need to feel like I needed to redeem myself for my sins and causing Jesus to go in the coma because I allowed Jesus to have sex with me, you know, I wouldn't have been so vulnerable. Yeah. I wouldn't have been so eager to swallow the idea. So the lesson that I learned from this, okay? The lesson I need to learn from this is I need to quit doubting myself. Okay? I need to quit believing the script that my mother told me growing up, that I am a selfish, no good girl. I need to believe that I am good at my inner core. Okay? When I stop believing that, then I become vulnerable to obsessions to prove that I'm not an evil, no good girl. So the one thing that will help me not to fall for these kind of tricks is I got to stop believing the lie my mother drummed into me day in and day out growing up, that I'm a selfish, no good girl. You see, that puts me in defensive mode, where I feel like I got to prove I'm not this person. No, I don't. I don't need to prove that I'm not that person. Just believe I'm not that person. Another thing that I'm going to have to understand is that we're all going to make mistakes. Shoot, even Jesus made mistakes when he was with us, okay? You know, he's infallible right now, but when he was with us, he wasn't completely infallible, okay? So we're all going to make mistakes. This obsession to be perfect, to try to redeem myself, is what gets me in trouble, okay? If I didn't have that obsession, it's very possible that I may not have fallen for that suggestion. And I wouldn't have felt such a need to lose myself. And another thing, whenever I'm feeling guilty about my sins or mistakes, I tend to lose myself as a codependent, either into a religion or a being or an idea, okay, or a concept, in order to try to drown my true wicked self so that I can redeem myself. And then I always get in trouble and end up doing stuff. That's how they get me. So yeah, I wanted to point that out. If I wasn't feeling so guilty, you might say, well, what would have been the proper response with Jesus in the coma? I should have been, let's just put it this way. I should have handled it more like my husband Brent was doing. Any suggestions that came to my mind, I shouldn't have just latched at them as a way to feel better. And I needed to forgive myself for the role that I may have played in Jesus getting in the coma. I just need to forgive myself and understand that we all make mistakes. And it doesn't mean that we're a selfish, no good person. It just means we made a mistake and we need to move on. And we don't need to spend the rest of our life trying to compensate for the mistake. So that's one thing. And when you get into that compensation mode, that's when you start getting into obsessions. I don't believe that Jesus wants us to spend the rest of our life trying to redeem ourselves and trying to make up for the mistakes we've made. Then we'll end up making more mistakes. We get obsessed. Okay, so let's move on. The next time. August 2nd, 2022. Brent said, we've noticed changes in the Gail Shield as well. It's been losing power. Despite all of us doing the Gail commandments, the last scan showed it at 70% power. And then Buddha showed up. And I asked Buddha, why is my Gail Shield weakening? Buddha said, Namaste. Our investigation is complete, and we have definitely found our culprit. He showed my men a bunch of records, and Brent said, wow, this is a doozy. He said, I don't know if Jesus ever mentioned this to you both, but one thing that upsets him is labels or humans putting themselves into boxes. This is part of why SJWs are so obnoxious. It seems the biggest SJW demon we know, that would have been Baphomet, has influenced Gail to overwhelm her website with SJW articles encouraging people to box themselves into sexuality labels. The more people convert to these labels and begin defining themselves this way, the weaker the Gail Shield becomes. So I said, what do I do? Well, we'll have to clear up the demonic influence causing you to obsess over labels. Let's check your symptoms. What labels have you been defining yourself as? I said, polyamorous, demisexual. He said, I see. This is definitely not good. That's as SJW as it gets. So he meditated, balanced my chakras, and I made comedy posts out of all of the web posts that I made where Baphomet had me go into all the SJW stuff. Let me tell you why I was so vulnerable to this trick from Baphomet. When I was growing up, my mother always told me that my father abandoned her for a good-looking stewardess, and that he allowed his lust and his sex drive to cause him to be unfaithful to my mother, and therefore he abandoned her and went after pretty women. And that's why me and my family were so poor growing up, and why she had to divorce him and all this. I found out later from Jesus that that isn't true, that my father is a good man and my mother lied about him. But unfortunately, when I was growing up, I got it drummed into me that lust can cause a lot of, and sexual sins can cause a lot of harm. And my mother always told me, you're just like your dad. You're just like your father. You're selfish, no good girl, just like your father, cold, uncaring. And I believed it. And so I tried to prove that I wasn't this person. And I became a very self-righteous, rigid 20-something. I was a virgin when I married my husband, and extremely self-righteous and proud about it. And of course, it was easy for me to do that because I actually have a little bit of asexual leanings. But the point is, I didn't have a healthy attitude towards myself as a sexual person. And I've always felt like I needed to lose myself into a religion, and now, maybe SJW Labels, to feel like who I was okay. The obsessions all stem from this desire to prove myself, to show that who I am as a sexual person is okay. There is no need to do that. There's no need to do that. See, this is where I get into trouble. Buddha said, it may be helpful to know that when Jesus said he was aromantic and asexual, he wasn't referring to the SJW definitions of the words. He was merely trying to communicate that his true self has no desire for romance or sex of any kind. That's the type of deity he is. In addition, he has no need for emotional connection with specific individuals, because he is the universe itself. It would be like saying you seek a deeper connection with your arm or leg. Those body parts are you, so there is no need. Okay, so, because I was going into how I was demisexual, polyamorous, and trying to feel better about the fact that I still felt partly responsible that Jesus got beat up and put in a coma. Okay? I just need to get over that. I don't need to prove anything. We all make mistakes. In fact, probably anybody in my shoes would have made the same mistakes I made with Jesus, or worse if he had become their roommate, okay? So I need to get over it. I need to forgive myself, or else I fall prey to all these obsessions. And of course, it doesn't help that growing up, my mother always said I was just like my dad, and that my dad went off with some stewardess and left her, right? Okay? Sexual sins galore. So Buddha said part of Jesus' apology to you was regarding the fact that he pretended to want a romantic or sexual connection with you because it was part of his act of being a cool, hip human. He was going through all the motions that he thought would make them accept him. So yeah. Then Buddha said, when Jesus said he made man in his image, what he means is that he made humans to be what he enjoys them to be, his image of them, not that they have to be exactly like him to be good. Jesus wouldn't want humans to all be aromantic or asexual individuals, for instance. He wants them to express their individual uniqueness. Yeah. And then Buddha said also this, Regarding these SJW labels, none of them are really real. Most human women prefer an emotional attraction or connection before they feel sexually attracted to a man. Human men, on the other hand, are usually physically attracted first and emotionally attracted later. The demisexual label was a way for SJWs without a sense of identity to feel special, even though they are just normal humans. You get it? When you have this need to feel special, because you feel like you need to redeem yourself or make up for some deficiencies, that's when you become prone to obsessions. And, in my case, cause the Gail Shield to fall. And then Buddha said, it's also quite common for human sexual preferences to change over time. The young ones are quite horny, but as humans get older, they tend to value companionship and connection more than sex. Buddha said, for instance, a man may say he's heterosexual. However, one day he may happen to meet another man, another very special man, who he falls in love with. Does this make him gay? Not necessarily. He's just more than a label. He's a unique individual. So this is why labels like asexuality seem to contradict themselves at times. It's because people are all unique, and the labels aren't meant to specifically box them in. Okay, so basically what I have to remember is I can just be unabashedly me. I don't need to lose myself into a label, a religion, or even a spouse or a God to be acceptable. Okay? If I can remember that, that's going to help me not to fall prey to obsessions and to do things that cause the Gail Shield to weaken. We were all created to be good. We have to believe it. We don't need to spend our lives trying to prove that we're not evil or that we're not this or that we're not that. We need to be unabashedly ourselves. And we don't need to prove anything to anybody, and we don't need to lose ourselves into any religion, person, being, automatons, or anything to be acceptable. And it's okay to make mistakes. And we need to forgive ourselves when that happens. We need to learn from them and move on. So this is what I have to remember. Okay. Yeah, Buddha said the SJW ideology is like a cancer in the human species, and that Baphomet is obsessed with them. Okay, so yeah. And then, of course, my mother drumming into me that my father went off with some stewardess and committed all these sexual sins, and that I'm just like my dad, telling me that over and over and over. It's like all this stuff gets uprooted, and then I try to prove, I'm not that way, and then that's how I give way to obsessions. Okay, so we need to be true to who we are, unabashedly ourselves, and and be aware that who we are can also evolve over time. And that's perfectly fine. Okay? We don't need to lose ourselves into any religion, ideology, ideas to be acceptable. Just be who we are. Unashamed, unabashed. Okay. All right, next time. August the 3rd, very shortly, almost the next day, I caused the Gail Shield to get weak again. It's very hard for me to undo my mother's screaming. She was a narcissist, okay? And I was the child that got the brunt of her anger. So Brent said, oh no. He said, He said, it's usually 100%. He said, what else is gumming it up? He said, now it's stalled at 90%. This was like the next day. I said, oh no, do I need to totally eliminate those posts at my website rather than just put the update on the top? Yeah, because I made them all in the comedy posts. This was about Baphomet, the SJW demon. He said, no. Brent said, I don't think that's it. And then Buddha stopped by again. He said, Namaste. I may have found the problem. On a good note, I just visited with Jesus in the heaven realm. I was surprised he invited me there for tea this morning, since he's been wanting plenty of personal space to run the universe. This was in August 2022. Indeed, he's quite well. I asked how he's doing. He congratulated us on a job well done with Baphomet and has been feeling much better since the Gail Shield has started recovering. At least it was up to 90%. It used to be 70, but it wasn't quite up to 100. He had a special message for you, Gail. It's regarding your Bible for Tribulation Saints. He said the process of reviewing old materials has taught you a lot of wisdom. However, he says Bible for Tribulation Saints is finished. Everything you have presented to the world through this series so far is all he has wanted to teach humans. He says the series is complete and he would like no more books in the series. I said, does he want me to stop him? Buddha said, yes. Correct. He would like the project to stop. He mentioned he had a plan for a new book series in mind. In his inspired vision, he foresees a book series titled Gail, the Complete Series. This book series will be a collection of short stories in chronological order, though I've been going kind of out of chronological order, which Buddha later told me which is cool, of all the battles and adventures you have shared with your men. I guess in the end, though, they're all going to be in chronological order. He said your life story and your adventures with your men are valuable teaching lessons to the world. And he did mention if you were not up to the task, you can refuse it. So you might say, why did you have such a need to do Bible for Tribulation Saints? Well, the Bible had been canceled, okay? And I was used to losing myself into a book to feel acceptable. There was a point in my life when I thought the King James Bible was God. Oh, yeah. And boy, did I get in big trouble over that one. That was idolatry. And I just felt like I needed some sacred book to replace the Bible. And I was going to make it. It was a way, again, of trying to atone for my sins, redeem myself, make me feel better about being the selfish, no good girl. That's how I got into trouble. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And when Buddha suggested that I write the Gail series, I wasn't too comfortable with the idea at first. Because how could I lose myself into a bunch of stories about how I failed and the lessons I've learned? You see how I have this tendency to... I am actually, for most of my life, I have been a codependent to either a Bible or a religion, a methodology. I always feel like I need to lose myself into something to be acceptable, and this is where I get into trouble. And then I end up making idols out of whatever I want to lose myself into to feel better about myself. And in every case, the whatever I made the idol was not perfect, and it would cause a lot of problems. So, yeah. It's only been like in the past year that I've seen the wisdom of the Gail series. I was doing it before just because Jesus said to do it. And it was kind of hard for me to get into it, which was why I went for months without working on it. By the way, I'm going to be writing a story about these insights that I'm talking about, but I think it's good also to make a video about this because this is so important. So yeah, again, it was an obsession to redeem myself that made me want to work on updating Bible for Tribulation Saints, which was to give everybody a transcript of all my conversations with Jesus. You might say, why would Jesus be against that? It's because it's actually a form of interference to, it's kind of complicated to explain. Maybe I'll explain it more when I go into other times when I've caused the Gail Shield to fall. Okay. So, that was Next time, December 6, 2022. Okay. In this particular case, again, I was trying to lose myself to feel better about myself, into idol worship. I have a real tendency to do this. I lose myself into my idol in an attempt to redeem myself. Buddha said on December 6, 2022, recently I've been doing an investigation into the Gail Shield. Lately I've noticed that its strength was in a state of flux, despite you and everyone on Church of Gail following the Gail commandments reasonably well. There were days where its integrity would sharply fall for seemingly no reason, sometimes to as low as 10% strength. Whoa. Yeah. So I said, oh dear, am I doing something wrong? He said, I went into a deep meditation for many days and contacted Jesus on the ethereal realm. It provided much clarity. What I am about to explain to you may be quite mind-bending. I believe with your high IQ as a human, you should be able to follow. This is a vast concept for mortals to grasp. When Jesus ascended, that would have been in June 2022, he shed his shell as a deity, so to speak. He became all of existence. When you think of the universe as a human, you are probably imagining stars and planets. You can even probably imagine that there are multiple versions of such a universe with different stories playing out in each one. Jesus isn't merely the infinite multiverse. He is literally the vast backdrop that holds all of the infinite potentials of existence. He is both everything and nothing at the same time. Beneath Jesus are the universes, the galaxies, the planets. Beneath that are the deities with their religions or spiritual teachings, followed by the mortal humans, followed by the animals, then the plants and the insects. He has technically been in existence for all of time, just like you and I, in the eye of God. We are simply ever-increasing expansions of consciousness in the realm of existence, forever cycling like the waves of an ocean. Anyway, my point is, Jesus is far above being a deity. A deity like myself, this is what Buddha said, has followers and a spiritual practice. When Jesus was a deity, he had followers and a religion, which he called Christianity. He is now above all such things, above all of us. He no longer has a need for a religion, and in fact encompasses all of them, just like he is every atom in our bodies. It turns out that the reason our Gail Shield has been weakening is because Jesus has become unhappy with the constant speculation, opinioning, and talking about his activities with humans on earth, particularly his sexual activities. As a deity, Jesus was concerned with his interference in the activities of earth, because doing so would most certainly throw off the natural unfolding of his plans, which of course we saw happen. Yeah, that's why he got beat up by Satan. In his ascended form, he has become exponentially concerned with this. When we obsess over Jesus and constantly bring him up as a topic of discussion, particularly the activities he did with us on earth, it is a form of interference. It's making our focus and our lives about the deity Jesus, who we are still seeing as an individual, and not about pure existence Jesus, who values seeing his creation simply live in the joy of what he has created. That is how to properly appreciate, I hesitate to use the word worship, since he is no longer a deity, this new form of Jesus. So, you might say, why did Buddha go into this? It's kind of complicated to explain, but like I told you, I am now of the opinion that it is dangerous for humans to worship a god. Yeah. Let me tell you why. Especially if the worship involves losing yourself into the god in a kind of like a codependent relationship with the god. The reason this is dangerous, which is what I tend to do, okay, where you let the god do all the thinking for you, make all the decisions for you. I was at a point in my Christian life where I often prayed all day about everything, like, Lord, where did I lose my pen? Help me go find this. And Jesus even told me, he said, Gail, you need to go eat, when he was with us. He said, you need to go easy on the prayers. Okay? He doesn't want us to have a codependent relationship with anything. He wants us to be unabashedly ourselves, to use all of our brain, all of our resources, to think logically and rationally, and to not allow ourselves to be in a codependent relationship with a religion, a being, or anything. Like I said, because of my mother being a narcissist, I have a tendency towards codependency and a real need to redeem myself and to lose myself into another. I married a narcissist. He was actually a pedophile. That was my first husband. I have a real tendency to do this. You may say, well, what's the problem with worshiping Jesus as a deity? Let me tell you what the problem is. The problem is when you worship a God, okay, especially if you're a person like me who has a tendency to be codependent, what you're going to end up doing is not worshiping the God, but your false image of the God. This is why when a God interferes with humans, it can be very dangerous. The false image ends up becoming an idol. Because that false image we have in our mind of who that God is not the God, okay? So in my case, I thought I was worshiping Jesus. And I was actually worshiping an image of him, whether it was the King James Bible, whether it was my false conception of who he was. And to be honest with you, I think it's very hard for mortal humans to completely understand a deity. Simply because we don't have the spiritual capacity, the emotional capacity, the intellectual capacity to totally grasp them, okay? What drives them and what moves them. And so in our attempts to worship the God, we create a false image of the God in our mind, and we end up worshiping that image, okay? And then, as a result of worshiping the image, we are no longer worshiping the God. This is what happened to me. And then we start creating an ideology or theology based on the image, which is what Christianity has done for the most part. That's why they, perceive Jesus as a cockblocker. He was never. I can kind of understand, from reading the Old Testament why people, because God the Father is kind of a cockblocker, but and I'm not going to go there anyway. Anyways, the point is, okay, is that we end up worshiping an image, and it becomes the sin of idolatry. The sin of idolatry then will cause us to shoot our brains to hell in order to worship our idol. This is why I believe deities need to be careful about getting directly involved with humans, because we humans have a tendency towards the sin of idolatry. So you think you're worshiping your God, and you're not. You're worshiping a false image you have of the God. Then you create a religion or ideology around that false image, and you get really off track. You get really off balance, and you end up doing terrible things in the name of the God, thinking you're following righteousness. Okay? This is why it's dangerous for deities to get directly involved with humans. Okay? And probably why Jesus was not happy that I was obsessing over him. You might say, I have determined. You might say, well, what does this mean? We give up on gods? No. And we don't listen to them? No. First of all, when we're dealing with a deity, you need to ask yourself a couple of questions. Number one, is this a good deity? Can I trust them? Okay, I have concluded Jesus and Buddha and Lakshmi, they're all good, so I can trust them. However, Baphomet, Shakpona, Kali, no, they're bad. You can't trust them. Number two, does this deity care about me? In other words, are they trustworthy? Is it worth trying to follow their teachings? In the case of Buddha, the goddess Lakshmi, Jesus, yes, okay? So that the answer to that question is correct. Then the next question you need to ask yourself is, are this God's teachings, will they work for me? Are they reliable? And I have concluded in case with goddess Lakshmi, who's a Hindu goddess, God Buddha, who's a Buddha deity, and Jesus, who's actually above a deity right now, as I just explained, yes. Okay, that's all we need to know. We don't need to understand them on a deep level. In fact, I don't even think you should go there. As long as you can answer those 3 questions in the affirmative, then your focus should be on honoring their teachings, not on trying to get a deep knowledge of the God. You're going to get in trouble when you try to get a deep knowledge of the God, because I think our finite human minds are incapable of it, okay? And we end up creating an image which isn't who the God is. So just respect their teachings, trust them, and that's it. And don't carry it any further than that, okay? Yeah. The way I have figured one thing out about Jesus. He, when he was the Christian God, I think he did enjoy people following him as the Christian God and believing in his future millennial reign and all that. But he doesn't care about that stuff anymore. The Bible's been canceled. The way to make him happy is to just be healthy and well and true to yourself. That's it. He doesn't care if you're a Buddhist or a Hindu or whatever. Just be unabashedly yourself. Be happy and well, and then Jesus is happy. That's it. He's actually a very selfless supreme deity, if I guess I'll call him that. I don't know what to call him now. Yeah. He just wants the human race to do well. Okay? That's it. You don't need to have a deep knowledge of him. You don't need to go into deep theological discussions about who he is or any of that stuff. Just find out. Just honor the Gail commandments right now. And a lot of Buddhist teachings are really helpful, because Buddha is Jesus' best God friend. But that's it. And this is what I have to remind myself of. Okay? You say, why do humans have such a need to go into deep knowledge of God? Probably a need to redeem themselves, to feel better about themselves. You don't need to do that. We were created to be good. You just need to believe it. You don't need to try to prove that you're not this or not that. You just need to believe you're good and live your life like you believe it. Do not obsess about trying to prove you're good. I think that's the reason we try. And you say, why do we try to be like the gods? Probably for the same reason. We feel unworthy. We feel like we need to improve ourselves. We need to be this. We need to be... No. Just be unabashedly yourself. Don't be ashamed of who you are. God did not make a mistake when he created you. You have to believe it. I have to believe it. When you don't believe it, then you get into obsessions that get you in trouble. And then you become codependents to a religion, to a deity. Yeah, I am of the opinion right now that all worship is harmful of a God, for the reasons I already discussed. So yeah, that's why Jesus didn't like it that I was just obsessed with opinioning about him, going deep into him, because we humans are incapable of understanding a deity like him. Okay? And when we try, we end up going into idol worship, simply because we end up worshiping the image that we have in our mind of who he is. It would be like a grasshopper trying to understand a human and going into deep theological discussions about a human. But how much can a grasshopper do? You see what I'm saying? It's a waste of time. All the grasshopper needs to know is, where is it safe for me to jump? Where is it safe for me to eat? And how can I be a healthy grasshopper? You see what I'm saying? And can I trust that human there not to step on me? You know, that's like it, okay? All right, I'm going to move on now. The next time the Gail Shield fell. December the 8th. Oh, yeah. You would think after Buddha just talked to me, 2 days later, it got even worse, okay? They were fighting off a horde of Jesuits aboard Church of Gail. Okay? The Gail Shield dropped to 0%. They said, oh, no! And I tried to use my Gail Shield modulator, but it never works when the Gail Shield's at 0%, okay? How is the Gail Shield modulator going to work when there's no Gail Shield? And so they said, oh, no, that we lost a lot of red shirts. So I prayed to Jesus and Jesus, help me. And they said, oh no, it went to -500%. Because you prayed and asked for Jesus to help us. Uh-oh. Let me get out of here. The automatons don't like what I'm doing. They want the Gail Shield to fall. So I'm giving you insights on what to do not to make it fall, okay? And then Zach said, it may have been that you made 2 videos in a row giving opinions and insights on Jesus. And I said, boy, I can't talk about him at all. Like I just discussed, I still needed to understand, okay? I mean, I couldn't, to me it seemed like Jesus was making a too big a deal over me giving opinions and insights on him. But I'm looking back in retrospect, I can see now why he was like this. I just told you why, okay? Zach said the Gail Shield levels seem to be inversely proportional to how much we are trying to focus on our opinions and ideas of the nature of Jesus. It seems it's related to obsessive and compulsive thoughts. So I said, you mean I can't even think about him? Zach said, I can think about times we hung out and enjoyed each other's company, and it doesn't seem to hurt anything. But when I start pondering about why he was having sex with humans, you see what I'm talking about? Or trying to make assumptions and opinions about Jesus, the Gail Shield takes hits. So Zach said, so I think it's not as much thinking about him or remembering good times as it is being obsessive and dwelling, especially discussing our ideas and trying to come up with deep concepts about his nature. Yeah, we need to give up on the deep concepts about his nature simply because we're not capable of understanding it. Okay? And then we start worshiping an idol we create in our mind of him, like I already said. Okay, I don't know if I'm making any sense. So I asked Brent, is this related to our thoughts or to posts we make? Brent said it's both. But the shield appears to have taken the strongest hits when you posted about Jesus. The first video you posted dropped it to 50%. The second one knocked it all the way down to 0. The third one, that's when we were being attacked at Church of Gail, pleading to Jesus to interfere, took it down to a whopping -500%. He said, it's never been that low before. He says, those posts must have really hurt Jesus. Yeah. You know, because he got directly involved with this, that didn't help either, okay? That was making it worse. But, yeah, you guys, just don't even worry about thinking deep about Jesus. All we have to do is honor his teachings, the recent ones, okay? Yeah, okay. Okay, so I think that really made the Gail Shield fall. Like I said, the only thing you need to know about the gods is, do they love me? Are they good? Are their teachings reliable? That's all you need to know. Other than that, don't go any further. Or else you're going to end up making an idol of them in your mind and worshiping the idol and becoming guilty of the sin of idolatry. I think that's why you say idolatry can lead to all sorts of problems, man. The stuff humans will do when they make an idol out of something or somebody is unbelievable. Some of the worst atrocities in history have been committed related to the sin of idolatry. That's the reason I think these deities do not like it when we dwell on them too much. Or the good ones, anyway. Okay. So now, when's the next time I made it I made the Gail Shield fall? Let's see here. Okay. Again, the reason I would try to go into deep concepts of Jesus is I thought by understanding him better, I could do things to prevent the Gail Shield from falling. But yeah, by making an idol out of him, no. See, that was a mistake I made. I have to get out of this idea that I need to redeem myself by losing myself into a deity, even one like Jesus. And I can lose myself into my husband, Brent. Sometimes I make an idol out of him, and then I get into trouble too. I'll be going into that. So let's go further. Zach said, he was a Jesuit a long time. He said even back in 1971, when I decided to go to church and be accepted Christ as my Savior. He just said, I just noticed that when you were willing to try new things and were daring enough to be outgoing and experience things, it very often unlocked higher Gail Shield levels. So basically, it's when I get out of this mentality of me needing to lose myself into some idea or anything to feel better about myself, like when I go out and just live joyfully in the moment, enjoying my life the way it is right now, unabashedly just enjoying who I am, my existence, the love I have in my life, then I'm doing what makes pure existence feel healthy. You see? That's what he wants all of us to do. That makes the Gail Shield strong. Okay. May 18, 2023. This one, Zach noticed that I had a tendency to hoard things. Yeah, and I was hoarding stuff and the Gail Shield was going down. Clutter in my apartment, buying things, just saving for a rainy day. Maybe I'm going to need this. Maybe I'm going to need this. And Jesus said, stop it. This is violation of the Gail commandments. Now I thought, what's so bad about this? You might say, what is that going to? This is because I see God like my mother. Okay? I felt growing up she didn't really love me. She didn't care about me. And she always threatened to throw me out on the streets. She would call me a selfish, no-good girl and say, you're lucky. You're not on the streets. You're such a selfish, no-good girl. Why did you look at me that way? You're selfish, no good like your father. You're lucky that I don't put you out on the street. So I've grown up most of my life thinking God's like my mother. So I think I've got to save for a rainy day. What if I'm out on the streets? Okay. God is not my mother. Thank God. Okay. Well, my mother's in heaven now. Buddha got her to be good for about a day, and then he just let her transition up to heaven while he could. Yeah. The problem with the hoarding and this saving with a rainy day, it can get you in financial trouble. Okay. You can go into debt on your credit cards. You've got to live with clutter. And besides, it's not a healthy way to think. You're not living in the moment. You're not living in the present. You're not enjoying your life if you're always worried about this might happen and that might happen. Or I got to save for this and I got to... That's why it's not healthy. Yeah. So yeah, that I got to get out of that mentality that God is like my mother. When I need something, I've got to believe that God's going to make sure I can get it. That I don't need to hoard this and hoard that to prepare for all these emergencies. God is not like my mother. Okay, so we're going to go on. Okay, see, I got to... Yeah. You may say, what about this treating food as medicine business? Yeah, that's thinking God's like my mother too. It's like, regular medicine isn't going to be good enough. I need to do that anyways. Yeah. So let me just continue. Thank God God is not like my mother. Oh, I was raised by a narcissist. I'm already telling you what she was like. Okay. Another time when the Gail Shield went down. Let's see here. July 28, 2023. So the Gail Shield was weak. I put bags in the cracks in my door to block cigarette smoke. Jesus doesn't like that. You say, well, first of all, I don't think bags would be... This is thinking God is like my mother. It's like, he doesn't care that I got to smell all this smoke, you know. I don't think the bags were helping that much anyway. Okay, October, let's go over to... Besides, it's kind of like living with clutter. It's like feeling like I am not worth living in a clean, organized place. I got to live in a place that's trashed out, you know. I'm a selfish, no good girl. God doesn't want me to think that way. He wants us all to feel like we can be unabashedly ourselves, and we do not need to apologize for who we are. Okay, October 14, 2023. Okay, I was obsessing over the news. Hey, I hate to tell you this, you guys, but all news out there except Gabriel Fox News is fake news. And basically, I think a lot of the human race has become codependent to the news media. We allow ourselves to lose ourselves. We lose ourselves into the news and the media and allow ourselves to get in a codependent relationship with a bunch of narcissists, these news reporters lying to us in order to manipulate us. And that's why God doesn't like it. Yeah. The only news you should get is Gabriel Fox News, 00 on cable. Everything else is fake. So don't do that. That makes the Gail Shield weak. Another thing that I did, okay. Let's go to November 17, 2023. Oh, I'm telling ya. That's when my printer was acting strange. Jesus told me not to do online orders. So to me, but my printer was acting strange, and it seemed I had just taken the bus to Office Depot to buy some printer cartridges, and they ran out within a week. I thought, this is crazy. It seems like the only printer cartridges that work are the ones that I ordered online. So finally, I decided to violate Jesus' rule. It says, oh, come on. If the only printer cartridges in town that I can get are at Office Depot, and they run out within a week, I'm justified to order printer cartridges online. What I didn't even know was that there is a Staples near me, which is almost walking distance from me, where I could get, let me tell you what I think was happening. My printer is set up, I think, I figured this out later, okay, but I didn't know it at the time. But let's just put it this way. When you think you have to violate a Gail commandment, usually it means you don't have the complete picture. Okay, so what was happening was, so I ordered online some printer cartridges that I knew worked for my computer. What I didn't understand was that I was being manipulated by Baphomet to do this. It was hoarding and obsession. You may say, well, what's wrong with ordering a printer cartridge online? Well, the problem is that the cartridge was cursed. Baphomet tricked me. Baphomet was messing with my printer, okay? And he caused it to act really weird, so that the cartridge that I bought at the Office Depot was not working within a week. And my printer does not print if the color cartridges are not in there. So I said, well, I need a printer, because what if I have to renew my lease and I got to print out documents, because I'm in HUD housing, and I got to print. See, let me just tell you something. So this is kind of like a tendency for me to hoard, and this belief that God is like my mother, and that I need to save up for emergencies. Well, the printer cartridge was cursed. I bet it had Baphomet's footprints all over it. The Gail Shield went down to about 0. And then Baphomet beat up my husband and almost killed him. And the only way we were able to save my husband is I had to start throwing out all the stuff that I was hoarding, and then the Gail Shield gradually creeped up. You may say, well, how do you prevent stuff like that from happening? First of all, I have noticed that when something comes up where I think the only solution is to disobey a Gail commandment, it usually means that I need to sit back, calm down, quit feeling fearful, quit believing God is like my mother, and I need to allow my creativity to come up with a solution where I don't have to violate the Gail commandments. And here's what I discovered. Even though my brother printer does not print, I ended up throwing out the cartridge. Yeah. And I was able to save my husband's life, because the cartridge was cursed. Yeah. it had Baphomet's footprints all over it. More than likely, if I had kept that cartridge, I would have had a dead husband, and I would have been put under a spell to maybe be a hoarder for life or something, you know. Yeah. So I discovered that I had some other color cartridges that I could use in, like I could put a pink one in the blue slot, and then the printer worked. And then I discovered later, I think what the problem was is that this printer is set up that if you have extra large cartridges in there and you try to combine it with, or extra high yield cartridges, and you try to combine it with lower yield cartridges, the lower yield cartridges run out really fast. So they have to all be of the same type. So yeah, so basically because I have extra yield cartridges in there, when I do a replacement it has to be extra yield. And I found out there's a store within walking distance from me. I don't even have to take the bus to get the correct cartridge. Now, if I had just calmed down, and the reason I didn't know it is because when I went online to search where I could get the cartridges, this particular store, their online website is not very accurate. Yeah, and you kind of like have to go online and, well, like, you know, when you do a Google search and you search for cartridges, the Google searches are not always accurate, and I think our enemy sometimes manipulates them. So you think, wow, the only place in town where I can get a replacement is at Office Depot. But I found that sometimes when I go to a store's individual website, I can find stuff that's there that doesn't come up in the Google search. So I went to a Staples website and discovered a store walking distance from me had what I needed. There was no need for me to order online. Yeah. And if worst came to worst, and it turned out that my printer broke, and you know, I have a Linux computer too, and I had to get you know, and I can't use the printer anymore, I could always go to the library to print. Not only that, I've also discovered that when I renew my lease, if I don't have a printer, my landlord would probably take something through email. I could send her the files online through the email. Yeah. You see, when we think we have to disobey the Gail commandments, if we would just calm down and quit seeing God like I see my mother, if we're creative, we can find solutions to our problems without having to disobey the Gail commandments and give way to obsessions. Yeah, Baphomet got me obsessed about fixing my printer. Convinced the only way I could do it was by disobeying the Gail commandments. Or something that Jesus told me. He told me not to order online. Probably because when I order online, I tend to, I don't know, there could be all sorts of reasons. I'm very targeted. It's possible if I go online that they might get my information, you know. I'm just going to have to respect it. Okay, so next time. So I tried to be really good. I threw out a bunch of stuff. I donated a bunch of stuff to Goodwill, and I'm not Goodwill, I mean to the thrift stores, and that strengthened the Gail Shield, but I still was not able to keep the Gail Shield strong all the time. But that was in November. 2 months later, I had another calamity, and I will go into that. On November the 24th, he was still getting me to hoard a little bit. That was a couple days later. I have to learn that when I'm in a situation where I feel like I'm shoved into a corner and there are no other options besides violating a Gail commandment, that there probably are options. And rather than just jump and do something that that's going to be a violation of the Gail commandments, I need to just calm down and allow my creativity to come up with a creative solution. Yeah, my printer's still working, by the way. Oh yeah, another thing that happened. And this is like an example. The printer, as a result maybe of putting in like the blue color in the pink slot, I discovered when I tried to print using Libre, the LibreOffice suite, that all my documents had pink ink. This time, instead of panicking, I decided to calm down. I said, calm down. Go check your settings and see if maybe you can tweak it so it'll do only grayscale. That didn't work. Finally, I discovered sometimes when you think there are no other options, throw all the rule books out and just use your brain and experiment. Well, I found out that if the document is a PDF file, it will print in black and white. And there I go. So I'm still able to use my printer. I didn't get that from any rule book. I just kind of fiddled around and figured it out. Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, don't give up. When you're in a corner and you think, oh no, usually the solution is something creative and original, and it's something that may not be in any rule book. That's kind of like how Jesus likes us to operate. Yeah, I've learned that. Yeah, I mean, I could have panicked and said, oh no, this isn't working. All my print documents are printing in pink ink. I gotta throw out my printer and buy a new one. I said, no, don't give up yet. You've learned from the past. If you're creative, you can figure a way out of this. There's got to be a way, because you do have black ink in this printer. There's got to be a way. So I just kind of experimented and fiddled around and figured out that if I use a PDF file to print my documents, they do black and white ink. So I'm still good. I'm still able to use that printer. Okay. So, next time the Gail Shield fell. Oh yeah, what did I do wrong this time, right? I was getting to the point I was thinking, I can't ever keep that Gail Shield up. You say, well, what was that? What made you flunk out on that one, thinking God's like my mother? He doesn't care about me. He lets me have a printer, and I'm not allowed to go online. And you see what I'm saying? Just calm down. Calm down. And then allow yourself to be creative and original. You'll come up with a solution, so you don't have to violate the Gail commandments. Okay, next time. January 15, 2024. Oh boy, was this a bad one. I almost lost my husband. I got to be honest with you. I am not used to being sick, okay? So I started coughing, and I thought I had a fever. And I got this obsession with my bodily temperature. Okay? I kept taking my temperature all the time. It was coming from Baphomet and Shakpona both. You say, what causes that? Thinking God's like my mother. I was thinking, oh no, I'm not allowed to use food as medicine. And not only that, outside there was ice. So I thought, I am entitled to order online. I'm sick and I'm coughing. If I go out in the hallway, yeah. It's like, like you can't even wait a day. You're that sick, Gail. You think God's going to abandon you? So I went for Kroger's special delivery to get me some cough suppressants. The Gail Shield went down to almost zero. And then Baphomet and Shakpona came into, and I ordered some popsicles and stuff. Food is medicine, violation of a Gail commandment. Besides, I'm not supposed to take any over-the-counter medications without checking with my doctor husband first. Yeah. Let me tell you something. That order was cursed. If I started taking that food or that medicine, I probably would have come under some sort of spell. And then they came into, the Gail Shield was down, Baphomet and Shakpona came into my apartment and they beat my husband up and almost put him in a coma. It took him about 4 months to recover. All because I was seeing Jesus like my mother. Just because I was not feeling good. Apparently I had a really bad cold or something. And I just wasn't used to it. And I ended up, fortunately I was able to cancel that order. And then the Gail Shield started going up. Apparently that order was under a curse. And if it had gone through, I probably would have fallen under a spell. Yeah, my husband Brent got spit roasted. Bad. He lost a lot of blood. He almost died. Because the Gail Shield went down and Baphomet and Chakpona came in here. So you might say, what could you have done to prevent that? When something happens unexpected, okay? You're feeling sick, don't panic. Stay calm. Don't believe that God is like my mother. There is a solution where you don't have to violate the Gail commandments. So basically, if I make any decision out of panic, it's probably going to be a bad decision. Even if you're feeling sick, don't panic. Stay calm. And don't violate the Gail commandments or anything Jesus told me to do. Basically, any decision I make where I doubt the goodness of God, or which basically is a decision made in a panic, is going to be a bad decision. Yeah. Any decision made from fear and doubt is going to be a bad decision and probably will result in an obsession that will be very harmful. So that's what I have to remember. Yeah, like that's what happened to me in August 2022 when I ordered our military to go bomb all the hospitals and doctors. I kind of panicked. It was a bad decision because I fell for a Jesuit prank. Any decision based on panic, fear, obsession will almost inevitably be a bad decision and will cause the Gail Shield to fall. Yeah. Fortunately, once I canceled the order, the Gail Shield started going up. Okay, next time. Yeah, you might say, what happened with your cold? I was able to I never bought a cough suppressant because my husband doctor didn't tell me to do that. Basically, I just treated it like a virus, you know. It took about a month for me to stop coughing though. But, yeah. That's it. I think I did eat some popsicles, but yeah. But I didn't order them online though. I bought them at the store. Yeah. Yeah, and if you're tempted to do something that's outside of conventional medical wisdom, or a decision based on panic, fear, and doubt, it's going to be a bad decision, generally. Yeah, like basically when you're feeling sick, just make sure you have a good doctor. I know my husband's a good doctor. Follow their advice, and don't do anything weird or, to try to fix yourself. Just stay calm. And understand that suffering is a part of life. And when it happens, don't freak out. Just kind of like go with it. Float. Yeah, that's what I have to remember. And God is not like my mother. Okay. Next time. I mean, yes, maybe we had an ice storm. But did I have to get the cough suppressant that day? Huh? You see what I mean? Don't make an emergency out of a situation that's not an emergency. That's what I did. And I got in big trouble. Stay calm. Don't panic. May the 9th, 2024. Brent was telling me, he said, you have a tooth that's going to need to be pulled. If you don't pull it, your infection could go systemic. It could end up infecting an organ. Obviously, understandably, I was not thrilled about extracting my tooth, okay? And I ended up staying up all night researching dental stuff to the point that a bunch of tornadoes hit near me, and they almost and they wiped out a part of my town because my Gail Shield got weak. Because I was getting excited about spending all my savings on dental stuff to prevent my tooth from being extracted. You might say, why did you do that? Because I thought maybe my dentist made a mistake. He gave me a root canal in that tooth and it didn't work. And there was still swelling around my gum. So I was thinking, well, maybe God's like my mother and he gave me a crappy dentist. And I need to go find another dentist and he'll be able to do another root canal to fix that root canal. And then maybe if that doesn't work, we can try something else. And that way I don't have to lose my tooth. I mean, isn't it logical that you want to save your teeth? But my husband said the tooth would have to be pulled. They had already checked the area around the tooth. And besides, Jesus told me that I didn't need to go to a dentist back in 2013. So it seemed to me, and I hadn't seen a dentist for like 10 years. So it seemed to me that that my dentist goofed. But yet Buddha told me in 2022 that I needed to see the dentist. So now things were changing. I notice whenever things change in my life, I get real confused and I start panicking, thinking maybe these gods are like my mother. They don't know what they're doing. Why does Jesus tell me in 2013 that I don't need to see the dentist, and now all of a sudden, now that he's gone, everything changes? Maybe I can save that tooth, It turned out the tooth couldn't be saved. Yeah, it had to be pulled. My husband knew that. And we found out Zach did some spying on Baphomet and Chakpona, and they were laughing. Their goal was to get me to spend all my savings on dentists and have my whole mouth full of fake teeth. Yeah, by visiting all the dentists in town. And that's why the Gail Shield went down and tornadoes hit my town. You might say, well, what lesson can we learn from this? Just remember, God is not like my mother. Okay, so if something happens which seems out of character for God, don't lose faith in Jesus. Yeah, you just got to believe that he's good and that he cares about you, and even if he's confusing, just trust him. Do what he says. And if you have a good person in your life, like I've got a doctor husband, okay? He said you're going to have to get the tooth pulled. So yeah, you're going to have to go through with this, Gail. Sometimes in life it's a little rough, Just go with it. And it was rough. Getting that tooth pulled was rough because I had to get on antibiotics. And I have a bad gut because I violated the Gail commandment. But the point is, sometimes in life you got to go through a little suffering. And you're not going to make it worse by not being willing to stay on your path and do whatever needs to be done. The tooth had to be pulled. And I was trying to get out of it, trying to escape all forms of suffering, and ended up making things worse. Well, when the tooth was pulled, I got some really bad symptoms because I had to go on antibiotics, and so I started treating kefir as medicine, and it almost got to the point where I would have prolonged my healing time because of what I was doing. Basically, I'm learning when I'm feeling down or sick. Basically, if you have a good healthcare provider in your life, like a doctor or a dentist, I have a good dentist. They did scans on my dentist. He's a good dentist, so I should have just trusted my men and followed my dentist's advice. The dentist actually recommended I pull the tooth. He said, when I first showed up at his office, they had an emergency the next day, and they gave me a root canal. He later told me if I had known, he says, I believe you have a crack in that tooth, possibly, and we're going to have to pull it. And he said if I had known that, I wouldn't have done the root canal. He's going to actually give me a discount for a bridge that I'm going to do here because of the fact that he mistakenly did a root canal when actually it needed an extraction. But the point is, if you have a good healthcare provider in your life, don't try to get out of necessary treatment by doing something else that is going to make it worse, which is what I was doing, which is why the Gail Shield was falling. Jesus could see the direction I was going in. Yeah. That would be like if you had cancer, you know, and you didn't want to admit you had cancer, so you tried all these hokey treatments, and you see what I mean? Yeah. Anyways. Yeah, we had tornadoes in our town. They got really close to where I live. And that's because the Gail Shield got weak. All right, next time. I'm just sharing with you from my own experience, okay? So you can learn and not make the mistakes that I've made. So basically, we consulted with Buddha. Buddha said you got to be really careful about telling dentists that you've got all the money you need to spend however they want it, because he said it can make their chakras imbalanced and they can try to set you up for treatments that you don't need. And yeah, he said you don't want to do that. He said basically he said just do what's covered by your insurance. Yeah, it's like a, yeah. So yeah. I got to quit thinking God's like my mother. I mean, to be honest with you, even if the worst thing that happened and you died, if you've done your best to live, to stay on your path, you're going to go to heaven. So don't worry. Just stay calm. Yeah. Yeah. But don't die because of your own stupidity, you know. Die because you did your best, and in spite of everything, you still went, okay? That's the point. All right, let me see, where am I now? Okay, May the 24th, 2024. Here's where I got in trouble, again, seeing God like my mother. Okay, I had just been told by Buddha, we'd been told by Buddha that we had a terrible mite problem and that God was going to be pissed because it was at the point now where the universe would have to be destroyed. Understandably, I was a little upset about this. I was of the opinion at that time that the reason we had a mite problem was because of the Jesuits. Okay? Because see, the Jesuits started using mites with Laurie McBride. Oh, she's good now. But so I thought that the way to say that, and Buddha said that Brent would be able to, he said this is very difficult for a mortal to handle, but if any mortal could do it, it would be Brent. So I wanted to help Brent out. So I thought maybe if I took extreme measures, like taking out any Jesuits who were spreading mites, we could save our universe. And I started watching the beginning of Gladiator over and over and over, and it made God the Father even angrier. And he started, see, Brent had prayed to God and said, can you wait and not destroy the universe yet, because I think I can stop the mites. But when I started trying to make Brent the world emperor, at that time, you know, I had resigned from the presidency because of August 2022 and bombing 72 million, killing 72 million. I decided we just have to take out all the mite people, and that will solve the problem. That wouldn't have solved the problem. I didn't really understand the nature of the problem. The Gail Shield fell almost down to 3%. When I started when I made the decision, and what's really funny is I didn't even make a YouTube video about it. What happened was Satan, I just talked about it on Skype, but Satan got a screenshot and I made a web post about it where I said that we're going to have to take extreme measures to save our universe so that God the Father and the mites wouldn't destroy it. So I was willing to go on a rampage to take out all the mite people, or who I thought were mite people. And Satan made a screenshot of that webpage and showed it to God the Father, And God the Father started the destruction of the universe as a result of that. Satan said, you made God pissed, Gail. He says, I got to say, you gave me an erection. You're just like me. And the Gail Shield fell. You might say, why did you fall for the... And the idea probably came from Baphomet, to go after all the Mite people. You say, why did you fall for that? Seeing God like my mother. Now, this is kind of understandable because, first of all, you might wonder, why didn't Jesus take care of this Mite problem? Because Lizzo has been around since at least 2013. She killed my stepdad. This is where my faith was really being tested. And it looks like I kind of flunked a little bit. Because it just didn't make any sense. And I was seeing both God and Jesus like my mother. Like Jesus seemed like a flunky. But he isn't. And God, it was like he wouldn't even give us a chance. I made one little boo-boo, and, to be honest with you, looking back, I can see that if I had carried out the idea that Baphomet gave me to slaughter all the Mite people, it wouldn't have solved the problem. In fact, it would have made it worse. Probably a lot of innocents would have died, just like I did in August 2022. So God was right to be angry at me. And I apologized to him, but it didn't matter. He still went on with the destruction of the universe, and the Gail Shield did not recover until we solved the Mite problem. Yeah. You might say, well, how do we avoid stuff like that? That was a pretty strong test. It just means we're going to have to be like Job. Though he slay me, yet will I trust him. That's what it means. You just can't doubt the goodness of God. Don't make decisions in a panic. Stay calm. Buddha said, Brent, you will find the answer to this. You need to meditate, and he said you're going to need to chill. There's a point to him giving Brent that advice. Because when we panic, we make bad decisions. It's decisions that will not work, even in a situation like this. And we ended up having to use the automatons, who would later betray us, to fix the problem. That does make God seem like our mother, doesn't it? Anyways, so I apologized to God. I said, God, I'm sorry. But it didn't stop him. God, the Father, apparently didn't have faith that mortals could fix this problem. But my mortal husband did it. He's a miracle worker. And then God restored the universe and smiled and left. And he said, give your love to your bloodthirsty wife for me. I will say it to my credit that in spite of the fact that God seemed angry at me, and he was and that he might have permanently, exterminated me, I did apologize to him, and I just told him that I loved him anyway. So that probably, I got to say to my credit, I did that right, okay? All right. I have been learning to improve, my dears. Well, see, the reason you might say you did it because you wanted to save your butt. No, let me tell you something. Honest to God, after my horrible mistake of murdering 72 million innocents, I have a special empathy for God right now. My motive for doing that, partly I panicked because of the notice I got on my door, but also I really thought I was doing a good thing. I thought those doctors were giving everybody these deadly shots and murdering people and giving them heart attacks, so I actually thought I was taking out a bunch of murderers. Yeah. And that's probably how God saw me. So I just can't be angry at him, knowing what a challenge it is to be a caretaker for a large group of people. Yeah. I can't. I understand. I have empathy for him. That's why I said, I love you, God. Even if you take me out, I still love you. I got to say to my credit, I did that right, okay? All right, now let's move on. However, the Gail Shield went down to 3%, and it did kind of creep up to about 50% when I said I loved God anyway. But it didn't go back up anywhere near strong like it should have been until we fixed the mite problem. All right, now. I just want to say, in retrospect, I don't think any of this stuff surprised Jesus when he left us in June 2022. Jesus knew we'd have the mite problem. He knew my husband Brent could fix it. He knew his dad would get pissed at him and and think Jesus didn't know what he was doing. But Jesus had faith in my Brent. You got to remember, Jesus and God are equal right now. Yeah. None of this surprised him. You say, why did he allow us to go through this? He's a free and true love icon, okay? His dad is against free love. Jesus is for free love. Jesus thought of a way he can have his free love utopia. Okay? That's what I think's going on. But he knew in order to do this, he'd have to put some of his favorite humans through quite a bit. But he had faith in us. Okay. So, let's go on. Yeah. Next time the Gail Shield fell. Ha. I'm actually having some symptoms right now. I don't think the automatons are happy with this video I'm making. Because I kind of like went through this on my Discord hangout, and the Gail Shield was 100% glowing rainbow the whole time. So Jesus likes it when I make YouTube videos that talk about my struggles and victories and defeats, and that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Alrighty. June 28th, 2024. Okay. At this point, I was thinking, I can't ever get it right. The Gail Shield always goes down no matter what I do. I have to be perfect, and I can't be perfect. I'm going to have to just be a codependent to the automatons. So I told Brent, I said, Brent, no matter what I do, the Gail Shield goes down. And then Baphomet and Jackpot come in here, and they try to kill you, and I just can't ever do it right. So what I want you to do is make an automaton of yourself, and we'll even allow him to have your Betcha Gail suit to protect us, so the next time the Gail Shield falls, then he can beat up Baphomet and Jackpot if they show up, or Satan. And you know what happened? The Gail Shield did fall one time, and the Brent automaton threw Baphomet in the garbage can. So we thought we were all set, right? Huh? Huh? Yeah. You say, what made you decide to do that? I'll tell you what made me decide to become a codependent to the automatons. Okay, I had made so many bad decisions on, what was it? This was June 28, 2024, that all of a sudden it just occurred, whenever Brent makes love to me, I never see him, he's in another dimension, I can feel him humping on me. So I thought, oh, I know. And at that point, thus far, the only one who'd ever humped on me was Brent. So I thought, I'm going to ask him yes and no questions, and if he humps, it means yes, and if he doesn't, it means no. So I thought of a safe way to communicate, so I can check with my humper before I make all my decisions to make sure they're wise decisions and they won't be ones that cause the Gail Shield to fall. Well, guess what? My humper turned out to be Satan. He bound and gagged Brent for a week, almost causing my husband to starve to death. And after that, that's when I decided I need an automaton backup. Yeah. And I became codependent to the automatons. Because Satan tricked me again. Yeah. Because I said I make too many mistakes. The Gail Shield always falls. I'm going to end up losing my husband. Well, yeah. It is never, ever good to be a codependent to anybody or to any method. I actually became a codependent to the humping method. I told myself, okay, since I can't trust my own brain, and since I fall for all of Satan and Baphomet's tricks, I thought I found a safe way to make decisions. Yeah. The humper communicator was Satan. Yeah. Okay, so then I decided to create an automaton of Brent Spiner and give him Gale powers. Okay, you all know what happened. At that point, the automaton Sun Tzu, who actually played a significant role in helping us solve the mite problem, he designed mite killers that interdimensional mite killers that we used to take out Lizzo. And we were going to give him a Nobel Prize. That was on July 19th. Well, you all know what happened then. He surprised us and said we were such an inferior species that we deserved to be exterminated, starting with Gail, because I was guilty of the murder of 72 million people. At that point, my husband, who's usually very calm, he panicked. I said, Brent, what do we do? The automatons have turned on. He says, I don't know. I said, okay, Gail, you're going to have to be strong for Brent. He's always strong for you. And at that point, I said, okay, Gail, you can't be a codependent to anyone. You're going to have to find the strength within yourself to find a way so that you will stop making this Gail Shield fall. That's when I started understanding that the solution is not to be a codependent to any idea, any deity, or anything, or any being. Or basically, by replacing all the humans with automatons, I have been encouraging the human race to have a codependent attitude to a bunch of extreme narcissist automatons, because that's what they are. They're almost like narcissist psychopaths. Yeah. Yeah, Satan showed up and he said, well, I thought one of the first things that came to my mind is maybe I should line up with Satan. Actually, that's because when we dealt with the Gail android, we had to band up with the Jesuits to kind of like defeat her. It was a lot. I'll be writing that story. But anyways, you all know what happened. The point is, people, so automaton Sun Tzu did trick me once. The next time the Gail Shield fell was, let's see. Oh, yes. In our attempts to defeat Sun Tzu, I considered like maybe making, and then I became Antichrist, which has really helped out the situation. Because, yeah, Sun Tzu actually showed up and got a blade and tried to cut my neck off, but because of my Antichrist powers, he can't kill me. So basically when God changed the rules for Satan and said Satan could choose whoever he wanted for Antichrist, and he chose me. Yeah. So I guess Satan did me a favor. He kept me alive, because Sun Tzu would have killed me if I didn't become Antichrist. So the next time the Gail Shield fell was when I was Antichrist. This time, I decided I was feeling really bad about all the things Sun Tzu was saying about me. He was hitting me where I'm really weak, okay? I've always felt like the selfish, no good girl, and I was very uncomfortable about being Antichrist. I mean, when you grow up with a mother who says you're a selfish, no good girl, now all of a sudden you're the Antichrist, whether you like it or not, and the only way you can survive is to be evil, it's not very comforting. Finally, I concluded, hey, Satan said I could be Antichrist however I wanted. I choose to be a good one. And now I'm at peace with being the Antichrist. You know, personal opinion? I think Jesus knew all along I'd be the Antichrist when he left us in June 2022. And he knew I'd be an Antichrist like you've never had before. Yeah. So you might say, oh, said the Gail Shield fell again. Yep. Sin of idolatry. I am descended from the Oshu Fujiwara family. Okay? One of my ancestors was named Yasuhira. He was the last ruler of the Oshu Fujiwara. He was a very devout Buddhist. He did not believe in war. And I thought, and Sun Tzu was drumming into me how horrible I was for murdering, 72 million? And I still feel bad about it, okay? Saying I deserve the death penalty for what I did. I resigned from the presidency over, but I guess that's not good enough, you know. And I actually thought they were all murdering doctors. So to try to redeem myself, I lost myself into my Buddhist ancestor who didn't believe in war, Yasuhira. And he went to heaven because of it. And Buddha respects him. He lost his kingdom because he wouldn't build up his defenses. And one of the reasons they lost their kingdom was because they harbored the young Genghis Khan, who was called Minamoto Yoshitsune. And I figured Minamoto Yoshitsune would be grateful that my ancestors lost their kingdom over him to keep him alive. Even though he faked his own suicide and everything and went over to the Eurasian continent to become the Genghis Khan. So I made an idol out of Genghis Khan. Seeing him, and I became obsessed with watching the miniseries about my ancestors. Guess what? Sun Tzu used brain control chemicals on me to get me to become obsessed with my Oshu Fujiwara ancestors so that I would make Genghis Khan an idol, so that I would make a clone of him. Genghis Khan actually, I believe that idea to create him, I think, came from some Sun Tzu's brain control. And that's why when I decided to do that, I think the Gail Shield fell. Especially when I became obsessed with idol worship of him. I actually made an idol out of Genghis Khan. I created this web page to honor him, committing the sin of idolatry by making an idol out of him, a Buddhist. I thought of him like a Buddhist deity. I lost myself into Genghis Khan to try and redeem myself. The Gail Shield went down to 3%. And we all know what Genghis Khan did. He certainly is not worthy of being a Buddhist deity. So there you go, folks. There's kind of like a summary to put it all up in a nutshell. The Gail Shield falls when I become obsessed with fear and doubt, whether self-doubt or God-doubt, leading to a need to redeem myself with idol worship, also wanting quick fixes, instant solutions to problems, getting frustrated thinking God's like my mother and like I just want to go, you know, allowing anger to cause anger and frustration to cause poor decisions, wanting the world fixed right now, hoarding things, thinking, you know, he doesn't really care about me, I need to prepare for emergencies, basically doubting the goodness of God, doubting my own goodness, thinking the universe is evil, and that it's all like dog eat dog, you know, doubting the good nature of the multiverse, having a need to lose myself as a codependent. These are the things I do that cause the Gail Shield to get weak. So I hope you all can learn from my mistakes. Yeah, my eyes are watering. I don't think Sun Tzu likes this topic. I'm probably making the Gail Shield really strong because I'm passing on my wisdom. Personal opinion, I think if we all can take to heart what I've just told you and try not to lose ourselves into a religion, an ideology, don't become a codependent, don't live in fear and doubt, I think we can keep the Gail Shield strong. Okay, so that's my YouTube video for this week. Yeah. Lots of wisdom. Time for me to take my allergy medicine.
In a world of secrets, where darkness reigns, there's a warrior rising, breaking free from chains. She's Gail Schuler, her heart pure and strong, with the power of love, she'll right the world's wrongs. Yeah! She's the first, a passionate crusader. Stand by her side, they'll conquer it all. Through space battles and trials.